before we get started, one of the first things I want to say is I am not a doctor, I'm not a healthcare professional. Anything that I'm saying on here is just my opinion based on my experience, and nothing that I'm saying should be thought of as any type of medical advice. And if there's anything that you are concerned about, I would encourage you to talk to a healthcare professional about it rather than listening to what I have to say in this video. So now we're going to move to the topic of how to overcome laziness. And this is kind of a huge topic. Someone asking how to overcome laziness, like, I totally appreciate that question. I appreciate that perspective of wanting to reach a place where you no longer feel like you have to push yourself to do things. You feel like you don't have the motivation to do things. But this is a very nuanced subject, and I don't think a single answer is going to be appropriate for everyone. There can be, first of all, I guess the term laziness is something that probably isn't an ideal term to use. People have varying degrees of motivation for different reasons, and I think that it's important that if someone is not accomplishing the things they're wanting to do, calling that laziness is not a constructive or helpful thing to do, even if that's for yourself. Like, if I am not accomplishing the things I want to do, rather than calling myself lazy, I'm going to try to figure out what in my process of trying to get these things done isn't working and work on fixing that. But that's my approach, and I know that's not going to necessarily work for everyone. So first of all, I think we should drop the term laziness or lazy and be a little bit more solution oriented rather than focusing so much on a label like laziness. Having said that, I think the question that I'm answering here is how to be motivated enough to do things that you're wanting to do. And that is not an easy thing to answer. I think the first thing that's most important, and again, I'm not a healthcare professional or a doctor, but I think the first step, if you're feeling like you aren't motivated to do things that you feel like you should be doing, would be to talk to a healthcare professional, because there are many reasons that someone may have low motivation. And I think those that aren't just like, this is one of the reasons why I think the term lazy is not a good one, because you can flippantly just say, oh, well, it's because they're lazy. Well, it might be because something's going on in their life that they need the help and support of a healthcare professional or a healthcare team to get past, and then that lack of motivation will be less of a problem. So I think the first thing to do if you really feel, and again, this is not medical advice, but I think the first thing to do is always talk to a healthcare professional and figure out if there's some underlying cause for the lack of motivation. And once you've talked to a healthcare professional, to make sure there's not any serious underlying cause for the lack of motivation. Something that really helped me to make sure that I was doing the things that I needed to be doing, things that were working toward goals that I have, is to use the 5-second rule. And this is a rule that has been taught by a woman named Mel Robbins, and you should look up some videos from her. I have the link to one of her videos, an interview with her, down in this video's description, so you can go check out what she has to say. But the gist of it is that you give yourself 5 seconds, you give yourself a countdown. I usually use 3 seconds, but the 5-second rule as it's presented is you do a 5-second countdown, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and on 1 you do whatever it is that you need to be doing. So if your alarm goes off, you turn it off, you give yourself 5 seconds, you go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and on 1 you sit up. And it doesn't matter how you feel, it doesn't matter what else is going on, at 1 you go. And so I just go 1, 2, 3, and on 3 I sit up. If that's something like you find that you're having trouble getting up in the morning, or you're having trouble doing things that you need to do and you kind of talk yourself out of it, that's a really useful rule to follow, is just give yourself 3 to 5 seconds, count it out, and on the last number you go. That's not necessarily going to work for everyone, but it's something that I found very useful. And I think if what you're struggling with in trying to get your training done is just getting started, then that can be a really useful rule to give yourself. And lastly, I want to say that motivation is one of those things that it's sort of a moving target a lot of times, because we're biological beings. We always have things changing. Things aren't constant for us. And so you always have to be making a choice to do the things that matter to you. And if training is something that matters to you, you have to understand that it will always be a choice, and it doesn't really matter what you do. There's some things you can do that can make it easier, and make it easier to make that choice, like planning, having your training clothes ready, having your schedule made up, all that can make it easier to make the choice, but it's always going to be a choice. So there's no real magic bullet to overcoming a lack of motivation to do something, or what people might call laziness. It's always a choice, and you have to set yourself up to be able to make that choice the way you want to make it when the choice arises. So if you don't schedule, you don't plan, you don't have things ready, you don't have a set time for when you're going to do things, you don't know what you're going to do during that time, all of that is going to pull on your ability to make those choices, to be motivated. And so if you do all that groundwork, then when it's time to get up and you do your 3, 2, 1 countdown, you sit up, your shoes are ready, your clothes are ready, you get in them, you go train. That's easy. Having your alarm go off and be like, oh, what am I going to do today? Should I do forms? Oh, where did my shoes go? I need to find clothes that I'm going to wear for training. All of that's going to decrease your motivation and decrease your ability to make the choice that you're wanting to make there. So just remember, it's always a choice. And there's no magic bullet that will make you 100% ready to train every time, all the time. And that can be a refreshing thought, to think that you're not alone, and that everyone who's training is training because they made the choice to train, not necessarily because they felt like training. And it's totally human, totally normal, and it's just part of the process. So I hope this video was helpful. I hope it gave you some ideas, maybe some encouragement on how to set yourself up for making the choices that you're wanting to make and get the training done that you want to get done. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. I hope it answered the questions that you had. Thank you so much for watching.